am so honored to welcome a very special guest to the mic here in the Healing Lounge. Kaitie is the founder of Beautiful Beast Within Studios, also a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and now a powerful life coach, helping others rise from the ashes of their own pain. In this intimate conversation, Kaitie is going to share with us her real and raw story of surviving a narcissistic marriage and the deep inner work it took to not only heal, but to thrive, because she is definitely thriving. Such an inspiration. I'm so excited to hear her story and to share it with you. So she's going from being silenced and broken down to now living in full alignment with her truth. Kaitie's journey is a testament to what's possible when we reclaim our voice, our power, and our peace. So now I get the privilege of holding space for her story. So if you have ever questioned your worth in a toxic relationship, this is for you. I am so thankful and proud to say that I was a guest on Kaitie's podcast, which is called Unveiling the Beast. And she interviews empowering people and gives them a space to share their story. So I'm so excited to return the favor and blessed to have you on my podcast. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start with, for the folks who may be meeting you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about who you are today and the work you're doing through Beautiful Beast Within Studios?
Well, I'm Kaitie and I'm a huge goofball. Yeah. One of my favorite things in the whole world to do is laugh. And one of my second favorite things in the whole world to do is make other people laugh. And I think with Marcia, mission accomplished.
Yes. Tenfold. And I love it.
Yes. And part of the reason is, like, this kind of goes deep right away, but I used to use laughter and smiling to cover up my pain. And now I use it for healing. And so it's such a different mindset to switch to, and the energy and all of it. So that's one piece of me. What I do is I'm a coach who helps other humans heal their relationship to food, exercise, their bodies, and themselves. And this actually fits into my story of being in the narcissistic relationship, where I came from, and all the events leading up to meeting this human who was interested in me. It's all part of the story. Yeah, I help people heal their relationship mainly to themselves, because so often we feel like we're too much. We feel like we're not enough. Sometimes both at the same time. And I want to help you fix that.
And that's what attracted me to you as a life coach. You have a very holistic view of what healing looks like, and it's the cornerstone of the work that you do. So I absolutely love that. You and we are right here.
Yeah.
We are right here. So you and I have talked about how healing from abusive relationships, toxic relationships, and more specifically, narcissistic relationships, it's messy. It's not linear. How would you describe where you're at in your healing journey right now? How are you thriving today?
I love that you call it a healing journey, because I'm of the belief that we are never fully healed. Because while we can still thrive and be healing from the thing that hurt us the most, like, we're still alive and life is still happening, and those old thought patterns and beliefs still pop up every once in a while. But the difference is I now have tools to deal with those thoughts and old beliefs when they pop up in my life. And this actually happened the other day. I was telling my story and I started crying during the part about my abusive relationship. And what's interesting is that's just a tiny piece of my story. Wow. Right? And that's when I got choked up the most. And I was like, bro, I've had so much therapy and counseling and coaching over this. What's going on? But it's just reminded me that it's still in us. But when you go through the healing process, you have the tools now to deal with it when it comes up. Did that answer your question?
Completely, because you described how messy healing is. You
Mm-hmm.
described how nonlinear it is, because oftentimes my clients will say to me, when will I feel better? When will I not have these triggers? When will I feel whole again? When will I not feel broken? And it can be years from now that you break down crying when you thought
Mm-hmm.
you were over it. And I think it just goes to show that it's not about getting over it. It's about going through it, learning lessons from it, gaining tools that you need and use for the rest of your life.
I'd like to add to that too, in that when I was telling that story the other day, the emotions that came up for me were like, now when I emote about my story, it's less of, oh, I feel so sorry for me and that I went through that, and more like I've gotten into this habit of looking at past me and just wanting to give her a big hug. And like knowing what I was thinking and feeling back then, and then knowing how I am now, and being in the healing for so long, like I just feel so deeply for her, and I wouldn't change a thing, because everything she's going through in her moment leads to who I am right now. So I think that's where the emotions come from, is like
I
for
can tell.
for
You're
her.
going to make me cry. Okay.
I love you.
I love that, because that is exactly how I feel about my experience. I wouldn't change a thing. I learned so much about myself, and wow, I made it through it. And I look back and on what I went through being married to a narcissist for 30 years. And I'm like, wow, girl, you're stronger than you think. The experience is an opportunity to see our strength, to see our courage,
Mm-hmm.
our resilience, and then to continue to build on it, nurture it, reach back and give her a hug and say, you did that. When you look back on your marriage, what were some of the earliest red flags that at the time you didn't recognize as abuse?
My first red flag that should have been a red flag, but I did not see it as such. We were still dating. I was 16. Like, I was a baby when I was with him. And I was in my hammock in my backyard. And he had just come over. I think he had just gotten off work. And he told me this. He was like, I could tell he was upset. And he told me that somebody had flicked a cigarette on his car and that he chased them on the freeway. And he was talking about, like, I won't go into details of the things he was saying, but it was basically very violent. It was bloody, and it was like, it was making me feel nauseated. And the people pleaser in me wanted to make him feel better. And what ended up happening was he somehow turned it to make it seem like I was trying to make him feel stupid by me trying to make him feel better. And he was so good at it that I ended up, like, after he left, I went up to my bed and I sobbed for hours, not because of the way he treated me, but because I felt bad for making him feel that way. Yeah. I want to go give her a hug. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you're describing, not to mention 16 years old. I mean, we're not even mentally, emotionally equipped at this stage. And then we're faced with something like that. And, we've talked about this before, our empathetic
Mhm.
nature. We're prone to wanting everyone to be happy. We want to help, we want to love, we want to support. And so naturally, in a relationship, we want our significant other to be happy. So it's so cool that you recognize, looking back, that you weren't sobbing about how you were treated. You were sobbing about not being able to fix it.
Mhm.
And that is really profound. And it's an awesome insight that you have about yourself, which is another reason why going back to events like that and processing it with your adult mind gives you an opportunity to
Yeah.
validate yourself, to give yourself compassion and grace and forgiveness and all of those things. And that's that hug that you talk about wanting to give her.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you bring that up because that's the work that I do. I'm not the kind of coach where you tell me a problem and I tell you what to do. Like I dig deep because so often we're living off of beliefs and thoughts that we don't even, sometimes we don't know they're there, and sometimes we do know they're there but we have no idea where they came from. And so like it takes a lot longer, but it's so much more worth going through that work with yourself versus having a coach saying, okay, here, eat this and work out this way.
Agreed.
And then to your point, like we got to go back and look at it differently from our adult brains. And not that we have to live there, but at least we can go back and change the relationship we have to the thing that happened to us so that we're not constantly like in this victim mode, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Was there a particular moment or series of moments that made you realize, I'm married to a narcissist, or if we didn't have that word, I'm in a dysfunctional relationship and I need to figure out what's going on?
So it's cool that I learned the term later on, but I did know something was off in a specific event that I like to call Hot Pocket Horror. Can I say that on your podcast?
Feel free. I mean, you wouldn't be Kaitie if you didn't.
Yeah. So this was, I think we were already married at this point. No, yeah, we were already married because this was the first time I took my ring off and said, oh my God, no. So his routine was to come home from work, smoke a bowl, take a nap for an hour. That was his thing. And sometimes it was other drugs, but it was usually just pot. So this day he smoked a bowl and then he fell asleep, and he was asleep for like 4 hours. And I didn't want to wake him up because he'd yell at me, right? But while he was sleeping, I went to our gas station, which was down the street. I walked over there, bought him a Hot Pocket, brought it back, not knowing he was going to sleep for 4 hours. Then I got hungry and I ate it. And I was like, well, he never knew it was there anyway, so I'm just going to eat it. When he woke up, I was like playfully saying, well, I bought you a Hot Pocket, but I ate it. And he flipped his lid. He started calling me a piece of shit. I'm a whore because I ate his Hot Pocket. He should have never married me. Like all these things. And in the meantime, my two roommates are watching this whole thing. Like, but that was like the first time I realized I had been in a situation that was not good for me. It was like this flash of, so like this thing happened and then all the other things that he's done flashed. Like it flashed before my eyes, right?
Right.
And I was like, whoa. So I took my ring off and I put it on the counter and I said, I do not want to be married to somebody who talks to me that way. And I walked down to my car and I got in my car and I started sobbing.
So that obviously was a pivotal moment for you. And what I love about that story, and thank you for sharing that, and I just can't imagine how painful that was, but it was also eye opening and awakening. So, yay. But I talk about those rock bottoms that we may have experienced that 100 times before in different scenarios. But this
Yeah.
time, I think I'm ready to, and it's because it happens when we're ready. And it's also why I truly believe we're in this relationship for a reason, to understand ourselves, to heal something in ourselves. Because anybody who knows me knows I talk about the 50-50 rule. 50% is about them, the other 50% is about us. We don't come into a relationship with a narcissist all healthy and whole, right? We bring our own stuff. We've got a luggage called people pleasing. We've got a luggage called codependency. We've got a luggage called low self esteem. So I'm bag lady walking into
Yeah.
my relationship, and we get taken advantage of because of all of our luggage.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the last straw that made you realize I am not okay. This is not okay. And basically, I can't take it anymore. And I also know that that's just the beginning of the journey. It's not
Yeah.
like you packed up and left and went and lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say it was the first straw.
right,
Even
right,
though it wasn't the first straw, it was the first awareness piece. This
Right.
happened after he threw a chair at me across the room and it put a
Mhm.
hole in the wall because it missed me. Like,
Mhm.
how come that wasn't the moment? I just wasn't ready yet.
Right. And so this is a perfect segue into self-blame,
Hmm.
because when we look back, a lot of my clients say, "How did I? Why did I? What made me allow, and so self-blame. I'm so stupid. I'm so weak. I'm so this and so that." So you bringing up the chair being thrown at you that just missed you before wasn't one of the straws, or maybe it was and you weren't cognizant of it, but wasn't the straw. The first straw was
Hmm.
being called a hot pocket whore. So I wish we didn't have, you know what? No, it's good that we laugh when we say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It completely takes its power away.
Yep.
So it's a good thing. And it obviously is a pivotal moment for you, because it kind of snapped you out, in my opinion. It sounds like it snapped you out of denial
Yeah.
and whatever that denial was. So, my question to you is, so many survivors wrestle with blaming themselves. Did you ever feel like it was your fault that the relationship wasn't working? Or that you should have left when the chair went whizzing by your ear? Or why did I let this happen? And if so, how did you work through those feelings?
Mm. This might be touchy for some listeners, but one of the things that went on in our relationship, for the sake of people pleasing, not just him, but also his mother, who I loved so much, but she was also abused by him, is I got heavily into Christianity because they wanted me to. And I'm not at all dissing like true Christianity,
Right.
but I wasn't raised that way. And my efforts and me getting baptized and all that was in an attempt to make his family happy. And one of the things you don't do when you're a Christian woman is get divorced. Another big thing that kept me there, which came from him, but created the potential for me to have guilt, was he told me if I ever left him, he would kill himself. And so those two things
Yeah.
were like, yeah, of course I'm not going to go anywhere. Even after I had my big awakening moment, I still stayed with him
Right.
for a while after that. But one thing led to another, and I was like, bye.
And I really appreciate, again, talking about the messiness of the healing journey, because even though that was the straw, and like you said, the first straw, there are so many steps after that that may not look like healing, that
Yeah.
may not look like moving forward. And, I know that in my case so clearly, because I left, did the ring thing and left. And 3 months later, I'm looking around living by myself saying, not quite as exciting as I thought it would be. Came right back, and I guess I needed another reminder, because he hadn't changed. He was open. I had changed and was ready to go back to being the submissive wife. So I guess I needed more, you
Yeah.
know? But I'm glad that that happened, because I want to represent, as do you, for women, that healing begins the moment we become aware. And the self blame that we struggle with is intertwined in that, but it's about us allowing ourselves to process what we've been through. And that's a natural part of the process. But how did you work through those feelings? How did you work through, if you did go through the self blaming?
Mm, lots of therapy.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
after we got separated, the first thing I did was seek out a therapist. I happened to be in college at the time and they had a free therapist that was like, it wasn't just a school counselor, it was full on psychologist. And
Hmm.
that helped a lot. And that also helped me make the decision to completely break apart from him.
Right.
So, yeah, therapy is highly recommended. It doesn't mean you're broken, it just means you need some tweaks and some mindset shifts. And
And a safe space, a space where you can be held accountable and know that you're not being judged. So, how did narcissistic abuse impact your sense of identity and your sense of self worth?
After the straws that we discussed previously, two main things stood out for me. The first one was that I did not know who I was anymore. And the second thing that stood out was if I did not leave, I would die, whether by his hands or mine. And so even though I didn't know who I was, I knew I was worthy enough to exit the situation, right? Yeah, I mean it's really that simple. I didn't know who I was. Like, who was this person who, yeah.
No, that is the thought, because it didn't just impact your sense of identity and self-worth, it erased it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that you mentioned life or death.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I always preface it with my clients by saying, I know this is going to sound dramatic, because not everyone is there. Those in recovery, those further along in their healing journey as yourself, we know it was life or death. It had to be life or death, or otherwise, what's another 30 years? If I don't see this as life or death, what's another 30 years? And I did come
Mm-hmm.
to those crossroads. So the fact that you said life or death by his hands or mine, by his words or mine, by his presence or mine, things like that, because it's not always physical. So no matter what,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, life or death just means I either choose myself or I die. I
Yeah.
die mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because you brought up Christianity, and spiritual abuse is what that was that you experienced, because that was not your choice because of who you were, it was your choice because who you were with.
Yeah.
So that's a completely different. So there's so many different ways in which we are dying slowly inside, but
Yeah.
on the outside, we don't do divorce because we're Christians, and those were the exact words that were said to me. We don't do divorce.
Yeah.
So it never crossed my mind. For
Yeah.
29 years, it never crossed my mind. No matter how unhappy I was, unsafe, uncertain, all those things, it never crossed my mind. So, life or death is so important.
Yeah, I want to add back to the identity piece too, is that even though I didn't know who the hell I was anymore, I was still in there. And, this whole concept of beautiful beast within, our beautiful beast is our true authentic self. And when we're in those situations where we don't know who we are, it's because we're covered in those veils of programming from a lifetime of messaging from the outside world. And so I bring that up because even if you don't know who you are, your true self is in there. And you know, my goal with people and myself is to keep unveiling that beast that's already inside of us. Unveil the beautiful beast within you.
Our true self is always there. It gets erased from our memory, it gets erased from our knowing of ourselves, it gets smothered and all that. So, there was the straw and then several other straws. What finally gave you the courage or the clarity to end the marriage?
Well, as I told you before, he was a drug addict and he was spending our rent money on his drugs. And at the same time, my roommate spent her rent money on a car because she needed a car in order to go to work. And I was in charge of paying rent. So I didn't pay rent. And then another month went by and I didn't pay rent. And another month went by and I didn't pay rent. And then we got served and we got sued. And as I was doing that, like the 3 months that I knew I hadn't paid rent, I felt guilty. And at the same time, I honestly don't know if it was in my consciousness that this is my way out because we had to move out, right?
Right.
Then we moved in with my mom. And so one of the weekends he went to his mom's house, I was like, okay, we're separating.
Mm,
And I had to start with the separating because of that if you leave me, I'll kill myself piece. I
right.
said, we're going to separate. What you need to do is get some counseling. But it was almost like that was my ticket out that he paid for. He paid for that by not paying our rent.
Right.
And it was like this whole I'm almost free, I'm almost free, I'm almost free. And then, of course, he didn't get the counseling and he didn't do anything I asked him to do. He forgot my birthday in that whole that whole separation period. And then I finally was like, I want a divorce. And then the support I got from my friends was incredible. Because everyone around me knew.
Mm-hmm.
They knew he was not safe. And so when I finally got out of it, they celebrated me.
So beautiful. That's my exact same experience. And I think we're one of the lucky ones as far as that's concerned, because a typical covert narcissist, which I was married to an overt narcissist, when other people can see it, we get celebrated when we leave. But the people who are in a covert relationship, they're dealing with, everyone sees the narcissist as, oh, they're so charming and they're so sweet and they're so giving and caring and, oh, they're so fun and, oh, we just love them. Why would you leave them? I want to marry somebody like him or her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's lonely on a whole nother level, because unlike maybe you and I, they don't have to spend as much time convincing someone as to why they left and how bad it was, and dealing with the, oh my God, that can't be. He doesn't seem like that kind of person.
Yeah.
We didn't have that problem. I
No.
didn't have that problem. They were like, okay, we don't know how you stayed that long. So many survivors wonder, when will I ever feel like myself again? How would you answer that question now?
It depends on how much healing you're willing to do and how deep you're willing to go with your healing. It takes so much more time than somebody giving you answers on what to do. But when you can find somebody to help you find the answers within yourself, that's when the magic starts to happen. And it takes a lot more time, at least in my experience. But one thing I always say, and I've taught my son this, and I'm so happy that he says it all the time, is the time's going to pass anyway. Where do you want to be when that time has passed? That can go for anything. Even when people like have a huge big goal and they're like, oh, I can't do that, it'll take too long. Well, the time's going to pass anyway, right? But I specifically like using it for the healing, because doing the deep work takes time, but it's so worth it. It gets us out of the patterns and behaviors that we've been on autopilot with our whole lives, because we don't know they're there.
I love that you use that word autopilot. I use it a lot. We have to come off autopilot and take the wheel, because otherwise those bags that we carried into this relationship from the previous relationship or previous parental relationship with a narcissist, we're carrying them into the next relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And if we aren't willing to go deep, I love that you said that, we're going to wonder, why do I keep attracting narcissists? Or why do I find myself in yet another dysfunctional or narcissistic relationship? So going deep is so important. How did your experience in a narcissistic marriage shape the way you show up now as a life coach?
That's a really good question, because like I said earlier, that my narcissistic relationship was just a tiny piece of my story.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else surrounded around body image, body shame, because I grew up in a bigger body. I had a grandma that was a bully, not trying to change my body for health reasons, but because she didn't want to be seen with a fat kid with her. All of those things led up to like the whole not enough, I'm not pretty, people will only love me if I'm in a tiny body, all these things. And then leads up to how I reacted to the boy who actually started paying attention to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that being said, after my divorce, I went I went up because I was free from this thing, but I went into battle with my body, and I called it the divorce diet. And I was on this mission to shrink myself body-wise as tiny as possible in the name of health. And I called it the divorce diet. I said things like, oh, well, at least it's a healthy outlet. I'm not doing drugs or blah, blah, blah. So, and I went to war with my body and myself.
Yeah.
And once I was able to finally start coming out of that, which was only like 5 years ago, versus my divorce was in 2009. Once I was able to start coming out of that, then I started unveiling my beast, and I started just ripping off all the ooh, I'm getting emotional. Ripping off the veils that the outside world put on me to tell me who I am and how to live and how to survive. And the only person that can come from is me. And so while that was a big piece of my story and even how I show up today in my own relationship with my amazing husband of 10 years, it's still just a tiny piece.
Tiny but significant.
Mm-hmm.
And, I love how your journey started. I mean, you basically described the bags that you carried into that relationship. It describes why the narcissist chose you, because they can sniff out low self esteem. They can sniff out our issues, not to mention we're vulnerable and we need love and affection. So we sometimes overshare too soon and all of those things. But thank you for taking it beyond the narcissistic relationship.
Yeah.
And considering all that you experienced in that relationship, to call it a tiny piece, to me, just speaks to your healing. You're like, that was just,
It was
that
a tiny but mighty piece, I should
yeah,
say.
absolutely. And I know you're not minimizing it, but again, I say it to say, bravo, because you see it as tiny in comparison to your 50%.
Even further, like that tiny but mighty piece,
Mm-hmm.
another way that it fits into my now piece, like PEACE. Ooh, that's good.
I love that.
It taught me what I don't want in relationships. It showed me what is not healthy in relationships, because one of the pieces that I coach people on is healthy relationships, because that all affects our health. And I'm a holistic health coach. So relationships is a big piece of it. And so that tiny but mighty piece helped with seeing what I don't want. And then later on, I can figure out what do I want, right? We're so used to talking about what we don't want, we sometimes forget to talk about what we do want.
Exactly. And that's so important because we want to give our energy to the positive. So tell us more about Beautiful Beast Within Studios. What inspired you to create it? And what's your vision for the people you serve?
So I came up with the name actually in 2014, and I knew what it meant back then, like, oh, the beautiful beast within is your true self. Yay, but I hadn't had all this healing and training, and I wasn't even a personal trainer yet. My vision is, again, to help people heal their relationship to food, exercise, their bodies and themselves, so that people can start on their health adventure from a place of love rather than a place of hate. Like, I hate my body and therefore I need to change it, which in itself, changing your mindset to that is work. Again, it's worth it. The time's going to pass anyway. But when you can go on your health adventure from that perspective, it changes the way you see everything. So, like, I am going to go on a walk because it makes my mind feel good and it brings me peace, versus I'm going to go on a walk to see how many calories I can burn so I can make sure that I'm in a calorie deficit at the end of the day. And like, it's this completely different mind shift, and it's the same activity.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So the vision is to help you heal mostly your relationship to yourself so that you can go on this health adventure from a place of love. And if you choose to, not ever stepping on a scale. Because another piece of what we do is we obsess over the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you something. The numbers mean diddly. It's the behaviors and habits and activities. While yes, the numbers are like data, they're not as important as everybody's making them be.
I'll put everything in the description so that people can find you and check your podcast out and check you out everywhere else. And if you want a good laugh after a good cry, call Kaitie. Okay? Because you bring it all. I mean, I laugh more with you than I have with anybody that I'm talking about something like annoying or frustrating or something I'm struggling with. I'm like, let me call Kaitie. And then next thing I know,
Aww.
yeah, yeah.
Yay! Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. So
But yeah, while I do the work I do to help other people, because I've been through what I've been through and I want to help them go through the healing, I want to help other people heal. The person I do it for is her.
Is that little Kaitie?
That's little Kaitie.
She is adorable and she
Mm.
gets hugs from you all the time. She's so
Yep.
lucky.
She's always in I have her in almost all the rooms in my house.
I love that so much that you honor her, you recognize her, you give her what she didn't get when she needed it. Um, that's just so beautiful. And it just represents who you are and
Yeah.
how you would lead others to their beautiful beast within.
Mm-hmm. And please note she's wearing black.
Okay, yes. That must be
Yeah.
noted. I think. I know you're big on black. Big on black. It looks good on you. Now, isn't there something symbolic about that?
Part of it was my bully grandma used to tell me little girls don't wear black. And
Mm.
the other part is just people telling me black is a slimming color. And I was always chubby, so
All right. Thank you for hanging out much longer than planned. And you're just awesome. And I'm so
thank
happy
you.
to know you. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Of
And I
course.
love you.
I love you. Do it.
Oh, the thing? That?
Yeah. It scares me every time, but okay. Okay. I love it. Of course, we end with a laugh. All right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.